When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
Welcome back to the Social Media Derby. Got a great episode this week. Obviously, the first week of the Premier League. Man United against Fulham, Arsenal against Wolves. We'll do some transfer talk, and then obviously we're going to preview next week's games. Brighton versus Man United and the Unai Emery derby, Aston Villa versus Arsenal. But before we get into this week's episode, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share the video if you can. Any kind of assistance with that will help. We're obviously trying to grow the podcast, and we've seen some pretty good engagement recently, so let's just try and keep that going. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the podcast platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. All of that is appreciated. But let's get into the pod then. Jonts, how you doing, mate? Have you managed to catch both of the games?
Yeah, I managed to catch both of them, despite the time difference. They were pretty good games. Also caught the City-Chelsea game yesterday, which was pretty good. I'm not going to stay up for the Tottenham game tonight, though, because why would I?
Yeah, fair enough.
Why would you? Yeah, the United game and the Arsenal games were pretty good to watch.
Yeah, the quality was. I think the quality wasn't quite there yet, but that's to be expected. But overall, I think all the big teams so far this weekend managed to get it over the line, and that's probably what it's going to be like now until the first international break in September. Just try and get 9 points on the board. And then get more fitness and get more tactical play with the team in the off break. But yeah, let's get into the first game then of the Premier League campaign. It was on Friday evening. Man United won, Fulham 0. Like I said, the quality wasn't super high, but all considering, I feel like it was a decent opener to the Premier League season. I think the first 25 minutes, United weren't great. Fulham had quite a lot of the ball, didn't really do anything with it, but we were very sloppy. But halfway through that first half, we started to kind of get our groove, and there were quite a few chances created with Leno making some big saves from Bruno Fernandes. One where he's a bit sloppy with a back pass, and then Bruno comes in, tries to hit it with the outside of the foot through his legs, but Leno makes a good save, and then a really nicely worked play. I think Casemiro plays a through ball, and Bruno comes onto it with the first time shot, and Leno makes another good save. But yeah, it was quite an eventful second half of the first half, but still no major incidents. Second half, again, another good chance. I think Mason Mount this time with a one-on-one with Leno, he makes a big save. And then for the second half of the second half, it becomes a bit of a basketball game. You see United have quite a lot of the ball high up in Fulham's side of the pitch, and then losing the ball. I think if I remember correctly, Garnacho loses one where he does a bit of a dive. Martinez comes in and slides in for a bit of a last-ditch tackle and misses the ball. And then I think it's Andreas Pereira breaks onto Harry Maguire with the 2-on-1 with who's it on the other side? I think it's Iwobi, right? Who's running off the side of him. And he makes. Oh no,
that was. Pass. Are you not talking about the Traore one?
No.
There was about two or three different 2-on-1, 3-on-2 situations that they had with you, and Adama Traore really messed up one of them as well. That was really
there was two of them. There was the Andreas Pereira one was the worst one because that was an exact 2-on-1, and that was the one where Sandro goes diving in for the ball, loses it. Pereira makes a stupid decision, and Maguire sticks his leg out and stops it, and then I think Pereira he gets the ball again, tries to play it through, but by that time Iwobi's like 10 yards offside. So they lose that chance. That was probably the best counter-attacking one. But there's another one with Adama Traore where I think they're 3-on-2 and he plays the wrong ball out wide, and then Lissandro clears it off the line. But yeah, there were a bunch of like basketball counter-attacking moves. Fulham had a couple, but unfortunately weren't able to take them for them. And then yeah, super sub Joshua Zirkzee and Garnacho both come on, I think, at the hour mark, and they combined to score the only goal of the game. A decent finish, a bit of a weird one. It was kind of like a toe poke. It looked more like an own goal. I don't know what you thought, Johnson. When I watched it, I was like, bloody hell, that's an own goal. Or McTominay's managed to shank it off his knee or something. But then when you watch the replay, clearly Xerxes sticks his left foot out and kind of nicks it off his toe, and it bobbles into the corner for his debut goal for us, which is great for him, to be fair, considering Rasmus Højlund waited about 3.5 months to get his first goal. I think he actually did get a goal in his debut, but it got disallowed for the ball crossing the line or something like that. But scoring on your first appearance is always good for the confidence. And then we miss a glorious chance to make it 2-0. I think his Bassi swings at it, misses it completely. Rashford's through with a 2-on-1. Does the right thing, to be fair, and splits it open to Garnacho, who somehow shanks it wide on his left foot, and it ends 1-0. Standout performances are interesting to get your take. I think obviously Xerxes gets a shout out for his impact. I think he was really tidy on the ball. He dropped deep quite a lot, got it. His control was amazing, to be honest. Every time he got the ball, his first touch was really good, and he laid it off. He always did like really simple things, and it looks like he's a bit of a Martial regen in that he likes to do all these bounce passes. He doesn't hold on to it too long. He always gives it and goes. So that's really positive. And then in the defence, man, I think Mazraoui had a really tidy debut. He was really good defensively. He kept Iwobi quiet pretty much the whole game. And then he also, made a couple of really important blocks. I think he blocked Iwobi when Traore, Lissandro said Traore killed him the first time. It was that time when Traore absolutely blitzed past him, got to the byline and crossed it. Mazraoui came in and made a really good last-ditch tackle. And if you remembered last season, the amount of times we conceded cutbacks, it was actually quite refreshing to see a defender in the right position to sense the danger and block it. So I thought Mazraoui had a great debut. And then I think Maguire was decent, man. He was put in some really sticky situations, ones that he's not normally quite strong at, on the counter or on the transition, and he did all right. And he stuck his head on a lot, and I feel like he had a really decent performance. So, we're not going to run agendas here. As much as I don't love Maguire as a player for United, he had a good performance. So you've got to give him some props. So let's get into the overall performance. Shantz, what do you think of the game? How did you feel the performance was? Because a lot of people are drawing these comparisons between this Fulham game and Wolves last year. I'll give my opinion in a minute, but what did you think of the game?
I thought it was okay. I don't think it was an outstanding game from either team. I think Man United obviously created the better of the chances, and I'm going to say Leno did well, but at the same time, I think a lot of the shots that were kind of fired at him were all very savable. So I feel like a decent, good goalkeeper saves pretty much all of those. So I would put more of the blame on the finishing from United. I think you created good chances, but just couldn't really finish anything up until where Xerxes finishes something with the most nonchalant finish I've probably ever seen in my life. It almost looked like he was trying to control the ball, and it just comes off his toe and goes straight into the bottom corner. And I think Leno has absolutely no chance of getting near that. So overall, I think it was a good performance from United, but obviously you're going to need to be better against maybe better quality opposition. And I think your finishing particularly is going to need to be better against better quality opposition. I think defensively you were pretty good, though. I will say Mazraoui really stood out as being, arguably, in my opinion, your best player. I know Xerxes is going to get the credit for the goal, and I think he was pretty tidy off the ball, but he kind of, and it's not his own fault, but he wasn't really involved that much in the game. It's the same old problem that you get with strikers at United, is that unless you're dropping really deep, like Harry Kane style, you actually don't get that much of the ball. And he did do that a couple of times, and he did get on it and then just pass it off quite nicely. But he didn't really have too much of a chance to really touch the ball overall outside of his actual finish. So I would definitely give it to Mazraoui or Maguire in terms of your best player. And I think Mazraoui was just really tidy, man. He's got really quick feet. He's kind of there's something about him that just makes it feel like he's playing fast forward. Like everyone else is playing a bit slower, and he's playing a lot faster than everyone else. Like his touch on the ball is really, really good. His kind of positioning and ability to smell danger was pretty good as well, because I think Fulham do have a pretty decent attack when they all kind of link up. I know that they didn't make use of their best chances in that match, but he did a pretty good job of shutting down a lot of their threats. You know, the Iwobis, the Traores, the Pereiras, when they're all bombing at you, it can be a pretty difficult one to figure out. And I think he did a pretty good job with that. Maguire also, I think, was really good. I can't say much more about Maguire. He was good. Like, this is what he needs to do more of, and then maybe at some point, you know, the plaudits will come back for him. But I think that you couldn't fault too much of what he did in that match. So overall, I think it was a deserved win for Man United, and I'm imagining you guys hope you can push on from this, because I think this is a good foundation for your next few games. And Fulham aren't, you know, they're not an easy just like walkover type of team. So you did have to work for it, and they will make you work for it, and you did get a deserved win. So I think it was par for the course. Really, it was deserved from Man United.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think there's some desperation out there to try and keep hammering us about Ten Hag and his style of play and all that kind of stuff with these comparisons with Wolves, because I really don't think there is too much of a comparison with Wolves at all. I think we dominated the ball. I don't think we played amazing, like you said. I think if you want to compare it based on the fact that we scraped past both teams, then fair enough in terms of the scoreline. But if you look at the possession of the ball, the passes in the opposition half and opposition goal, penalty error, XG, all these things that I don't really care about, but even on my eye as well, you know, we had all the good chances. If you watch the highlight reel, it will just be a highlight reel of us having chances. Fulham, they had good counter-attacking opportunities, but I'm sorry, that's going to happen in a game. Like, I don't know too many teams, unless you're Man City, even Man City have been proven to be a bit vulnerable on the counter-attack and have to face those every now and again. So I think it's unrealistic to expect United to have a game where that doesn't happen at any point. And for it to be managed in the way it was managed, in that there were no shots on goal that came off any of those opportunities, I'm super happy. And I think it's completely different to Wolves last season, because if you think of Wolves last season, I think when you look at the stats, but also if you watch that highlight back, the highlight clip from that, it's all Wolves. It's Cunha, it's Nunes, it's all of their players breaking on us and then having shots, and Onana having to make saves or relying on some luck, you know, poor finishing from Wolves side. And I don't think that was the case at all with this Fulham game. So I think there's definitely some stretches being done and some serious aerobics being done to try and make it seem like we're just as poor as we were last year. I will say, though,
I wanted to just add one thing to that, right? Like, Fulham had 10 shots yesterday, but 0 big chances. I know that like 10 shots is not what you want the opposition to have against you, but that's not too bad. Like zero big chances you conceded. I think the thing that you should be more sad about is you had 4 big chances,
that's
and
what I was gonna say.
You could only convert 1. I think let's forget about the defending for a moment, because I think it was pretty good. I think your conversion, clinical nature was just not there, really.
That was the point I was going to get to. Like, I'm more worried about our attacking prowess and our clinical, like being clinical in front of goal. I think that's a problem we had against Liverpool in the friendly recently. That's the problem we had against City in the Community Shield. That's a problem we've had in numerous games last season as well. And that's the thing that makes me a bit more worried. I'm hoping it's just a case of, you know, people are just working out the kinks and they're just, you know, it's early in the season and they need to find their scoring boots and their shooting boots. But yeah, I mean, Garnacho, and I've seen some interesting takes on this, because he had the assist in the game. People are like trying to scrub out some of his, wastefulness in the rest of his performance. This is the thing with Garnacho, and we'll see that with Ahmad, who I thought had a tidy game, but didn't do too much. They're inconsistent, man. They're young players. They're not going to be able to perform at a high level every single week. You saw both sides of Garnacho in the space of 7 or 8 days. In the Community Shield, he came on and he looked absolutely like so dangerous. Every time he got the ball, he was just penetrating City's defence at every single opportunity and scored a great goal. And then in this game, he got on the ball and it just looked like he didn't know like what to do, and he had no coordination. Like it just didn't look like he was going to have an impact at all. And fair dues, he gets a good cross in for Xerxes, but I'm not going to like completely rub out the rest of his performance for the rest of that 30 minutes. I don't think he was great at all. But yeah, it's definitely the attack that worries me a bit more. But I'm hopeful. You know, this is Xerxes' first official minutes for United. He's still got a lot of room to grow. I hope we give him a start in the next game, so that he's got some more minutes under his belt ahead of Liverpool the following week. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of positives to take, because the stuff that you mentioned on the defensive end is really important. No big chances. 10 shots is not a lot. And that's not 10 shots on target. That's 10 shots in total. So that's decent for me. And yeah, it's more about, can we take our chances? So yeah, I'm positive, man. And I will be fighting all of this Wolves comparison talk, because I think it's absolute. But let's get into another thing, which was the post-match interviews. Obviously, you're in China right now. You didn't get to see any of that stuff because it's the host broadcaster here in the UK on Sky Sports. But Ten Hag spoke to the panel after the game, which was, I think, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, and Roy Keane. It was super funny because he answered in his normal kind of robotic way, but his little interactions with Roy Keane were super funny because it was almost like he was expecting Roy Keane to like stick the knife in, and Roy Keane was being all jovial, and how we come to kind of know him a bit from the overlap and from Stick to Football and that, and he was kind of joking and laughing around, and he was quite positive. But you can tell Ten Hag's still coming a bit off that FA Cup vibe where he was ready to like go on the offensive if any of the pundits come for him, because you know he was ready to go at Roy Keane, even though he's a United legend and a United pundit. But I thought that was super funny. And Martinez, it's probably the first proper interview I've seen of Lisandro Martinez. He spoke really well. He did the usual thing where you don't go into too much depth in terms of like tactics and stuff, right? It was a little bit like press media trained and stuff like that. But he took on Jamie Carragher about his height comments, which I thought was class. And they were kind of a bit scared, it seemed like, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher to talk on that point, but he went straight for it. And I feel like it was refreshing to see him talk about the Adama Traore situation, because he admitted, he was like, look, you know, Adama Traore killed me on that first one when he took him out completely, but then he learned from his mistake and he killed him back. And he made a joke about, you know, he sent him to the gym, which I thought was hilarious. It's a bit, you can see why people, you know, like opposition players go for Martinez. He's definitely, you know, got that Eshousery element about him. But I liked it because it was all kind of like tongue-in-cheek type stuff. He wasn't like, you know, super aggressive with it. He was just like, you know, he killed me, I killed him. And then he was laughing and joking about sending Adama Traore to the gym. But I thought those interviews were great, man, and it's positive. It feels like a different vibe, you know what I mean, around the camp. Ten Hag is obviously Ten Hag. I don't think he's going to change too much, but I feel like changing the backroom staff, doing all the changes they've made in the background, I think has really brought, it seems like it, a bit of a kick in the backside and a bit of freshness to the squad, and we needed it. And I feel like that is kind of almost gives me that feeling that the board were like, we're going to give you one more chance, Eric, but we're going to, you know, we can't have things the way they are. And there must have been some bad signs or whispers coming out of the camp for them to get rid of both assistant managers, get rid of a coach, goalie coach, all these guys, and, you know, a lot of the backroom playing staff, as well as changing the upstairs stuff. So I'm positive, man. It was a good interviews to have afterwards. Obviously, we won, so it was, you know, it's more likely to be positive. But I thought it was pretty good. I don't know. You probably didn't catch them, John, so I don't know how much you have to share on it. But from a Man U fan perspective, it was good to see.
No, I mean, as you said, I didn't get a chance to watch them because they're not part of the coverage here. But I did hear some reactions to the Martinez post-match interview, and I did hear that people thought he did pretty well coming out of the back of it, and he spoke well and spoke honestly, which was good. And I think, yeah, just to get somebody more like that involved in the pre-match and post-match interviews will be a benefit to the Man United team. I think he's somebody that clearly can handle mockery, or he can handle the media and what they're going to throw at him, and he doesn't seem to be too sensitive, which is pretty important, because I think the height comments probably could wrangle a lot of other defenders out there, and probably they wouldn't be so happy about having to go and talk to Jamie Carragher or Gary Neville after that. But I think he clearly is made from stronger stuff, and I think a lot of Argentinians are, and he's clearly ones. Yeah, the good ones, not the bad ones that get made
not the Enzos.
Games. But yeah, I think overall, yeah, it was pretty good. I didn't see the Ten Hag stuff, and I will go and watch it back afterwards. But I think, man, Ten Hag, you got to pick somebody else to be angry at, because Roy Keane ain't your man. He's the most honest out of all of them. If you're going to go after anyone, go after ratty Gary Neville or Llama Jamie Carragher, who spits at people. Those are the people to go after, not Roy Keane. He's not our national treasure, but he's a national treasure. Leave him alone.
No, he's a legend. He's a legend. But yeah, I think he's still just on like heightened alert to criticism. He didn't really go at Roy, but you could tell there was some underlying, like he didn't really know what to expect. But yeah, I think Roy basically just said, and maybe he was oversimplifying it, but he was just like, just keep getting wins, keep getting results, and you won't get criticism, which is extremely hard when you're at a big club. And it's kind of funny because Alessandro was talking about it from the opposite side, and it's exactly what you said. He was like, at this big club, you're going to get criticism, and I'm ready for it, and I'm not going to make excuses. I'm just going to take it on the chin and try and learn from it, which is refreshing, man. Because under other defenders we've had, and that's part of my gripe with Maguire, is when he was getting criticism at the beginning and he'd come out and talk about it, it was always deflecting blame rather than just taking it on the chin. And so it's good, man. And yeah, I liked what we saw of De Ligt as well. Just quick mention from him. He came on. He looked really steady as well. So yeah, it's looking decent, man. We've obviously got really couple of really difficult fixtures going forward. So you'll really see what we're made of in these next couple of games before the international break. Last question, and you wanted us to talk about this, but I'll nip it in the bud because I know there's a lot of rival fans making jokes about this. So obviously there's been some news that have come out. I think it was Laurie Whitwell you've said from the Athletic, super certified top United journalist, came out and said that basically United knew about a possible weakness in Lenny Yora's metatarsal in his medical and decided to still sign him because they thought it was not something to derail the deal. I don't know, man. It's one of these things where I first of all, there's some people questioning Laurie Whitwell's the accuracy of his reporting. He's top, man. So I don't think that this is not true. I think there's got to be some truth in this because he's so close to that camp. The Athletic are class generally, right? So they don't report on stuff that's waffle. So I believe it's probably true. It's obviously a bit of a risk if you see something in a medical, but you've just got to trust that they've made the decision that this is something that's not like going to be a chronic problem that hampers him for the rest of the career. And they see it as just something like maybe there was going to be an injury coming up from this, but they'll just ride it out. And once he's recovered, he should be okay. But yeah, obviously it's not a good bit of news coming off the back of this. He's probably our biggest signing in terms of like monetary value, and probably the one that's had the most hype because of the fact we've gone head to head with Real Madrid for him and all that kind of stuff. So it's not great for him on that angle, but I'm not that bothered, man. I think if it was like something like you see some chronic problems in their knee, like ACL or MCL or any of that kind of stuff, then I feel like, yeah, I'd be questioning our medical team's judgment in pushing through with the deal. But with the metatarsal bone in your foot, I feel like, you've got so many bones in your foot. I know we've had high profile. But it's just like anything,
it's
right?
Okay. Like, all the other bones will make up for it. Don't worry. He doesn't need that extra bone.
Yeah, who needs a metatarsal? But no, I know there's been high profile metatarsal stuff in English football history, right? Beckham, Rooney. But from what obviously we've played sport and played, other sports and stuff where you could hurt your feet and your joints and stuff like that in a similar way to football. Like, I don't think metatarsal it's never been flagged to me when I've had injuries and stuff like that, or I've seen other people have injuries when we were playing tennis and doing other sport where metatarsal is like one of those ones where you need to be super, super careful about, right? It's normally been things in your knees and your ankles and stuff like that have been a little bit more sensitive. So I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just being biased and a home teamer and being like, I don't really think this is big of a deal. But obviously the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see. If he doesn't make a good recovery from this, then boy, the knives will be out. And our track record with defenders, you're thinking Phil Jones, Lissandro's even had a poor injury record since he's been at United. Bunch of our defenders have not necessarily had the best health records. Yeah, doesn't really bode well, but I'm hoping that it's nothing major. I don't know if you want to add some banter to this topic.
No, I mean, it's not so much the face value of the news that worries me as much as it is the trend or theme behind the back of it. And I think, you've obviously spent a good amount on this young player, right? He's only, 18 years old. He's obviously a hot prospect, but there were a few other people after him at the same time. And there was a big kind of discrepancy in what you were willing to pay versus what, for example, Real Madrid were willing to pay. And I just wonder was the boon of getting this player and, the ability to get him now versus somebody else getting him and, the ability to bring him to Man United for what you hope is going to be a very successful future. Did that cloud your judgment at all in whether you were willing to take certain things in his medical or whatever else, right? Because I also think back to myself, like, if it did come out that he had this problem and you guys decided not to move forward with him, then it would look like, medical, it hasn't gone through at Man United. Man United have decided not to go for Lenny Yoro after going through all this rigmarole. And then the fans come out, start arguing, thinking, what the hell's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you're not going to release all the details, right? So I understand probably the position that your club was in at that time. I just wonder if, maybe not now, but in the future, it might be something you look back on and think, oh, crap, we maybe should not have done that. And I mean, fingers crossed for Lenny Yoro. I hope he doesn't have major injury problems. I hope he can keep going for the future. And obviously, I hope he gets over this recent one as quickly as possible. But at the same time, it's just one of those risks you take. And especially when you're spending a decent bit of money for a young player who's already going to be risky in terms of their profile, their age, etc. Is it just another kind of risky move to take on a already risky transfer to go and kind of ignore a metatarsal problem that almost immediately becomes material to the team, right? He almost immediately gets injured on that specific bone. And now he's out for, what was it, 6 or 7 weeks? However many, he's probably got 5 weeks left or whatever. Yeah. So
he's out for 3 months minimum, yeah.
It's probably too early to judge now, but I just hope it isn't one of those things that you end up regretting, because it's a good bit of money to spend on him, especially if he's going to be injured frequently. But anyway, we've had a lot of injuries this last weekend, both to former Man United players in Angel Gomez. I hope he's well. Yeah, and also to Danilo as well. So I don't want to particularly talk too much about other injuries, and I hope Lenny Yoro can stay fit for as long as possible. I just hope Man United aren't too desperate, let's say. But anyway,
yeah, well, I mean, I think old United, I would question it more. Let's put it this way, and there's no stock enough to say it's going to be like this new leadership team is going to be drastically different. By the way, so I'm not saying I'm ruling it out. I'm just saying with old United, I would seriously go, wow, we've cocked this up, because of their track record stank and all that kind of stuff. But for new United, I'm keeping an open mind and hoping, obviously, for his sake, because he looks like a really good, top talent, and he's a young player, so you want to see people fulfill their potential. But I'll have to just wait and see. I'm going to stay cautiously optimistic on it, and yeah, I got it. I know, like, the jokes have to run, and rival fans have got to come up, like Liverpool fans, Real Madrid fans have got to come up with reasons why they pulled out or whatever. Oh yeah, we knew about the metatarsal and all that. So, but I don't believe it. I think they would both snap their hands off if they could get Lenny Yoro right now, regardless of his injury. I just think they weren't willing to stump up the money or thought he wasn't on the market. But let's get into the Arsenal segment then, Jonts. The other big game for this podcast of the weekend was Saturday, 3 p.m. Arsenal 2, Wolves 0. It kind of started off a bit slow, and I feel like the crowd were kind of a little bit surprised because there was not, like, it seemed like anyway on TV the atmosphere wasn't bumping. I think they expected a quick start, Arsenal, like they got used to last season, but it was kind of a bit of a slower approach, at least until the middle of the, getting to the end of the first half of the first half, where you had a couple of shots on target. I think Saka had one, and you were starting to find your play and find Odegaard was getting involved, and it was some decent play, and then boom, I think it's 25th minute, a nice bit of play from the wing. Saka cuts back, swings in a really nice cross into the middle between the goalie and the back of Wolves' back line. And Havertz swoops in to tuck it in with a really nice header to make it 1-0 going into the latter part of the first half. And then, kind of going a bit against the run of play, because I feel like you guys were much better in the first half. Wolves get a really good opportunity. Hwang Hee-chan with a great cross, which kind of catches Saliba a bit off guard. Strand Larsen nips in. He probably gets a bit too much on the header, and it's a bit central, but still Raya's going the other way, has to swing back and stick a big arm out, and he makes a really good save. But you made a good point just now off camera. Raya was a bit lucky at the same time that no one was following it in, because he didn't really push it into a safe zone. He kind of pushed it right in the middle. But luckily there was no Wolves player coming in to get the rebound. And you go in 1-0 up, which I feel like you deserved, because apart from that header, it was all Arsenal. I mean, you weren't loads of chances, but you had the ball and you were starting to, find nice patterns of play. Second half starts kind of in a similar fashion. Partey should really do better. I mean, I know it's on the edge of the box and there's some players in front of him, but he left foot he curls it pretty far off target, and then Wolves start to get into the game. They didn't create loads of chances, but they start to put pressure in. Their press was really good, really high. And bit of sloppy play, and you wanted to emphasize this, so we'll talk about this a bit more, between Raya and Saliba leads to a really good chance for Cunha, and your curse reversed itself, because really he should do a lot better. But Matheus Cunha just puts it right down Raya's throat and kind of makes it easy for him, when he could have, potentially equalised, or at least made Raya's life really difficult. And then almost immediately after that, 5-10 minutes after that, quick free kick. I think Partey takes it, puts it out wide, and then beautiful goal from Saka, man. He gets the ball out wide, shimmies a couple times, sends Aït-Nouri. I don't know what Aït-Nouri's doing though, because Saka will cut in. It's a bit Robin-esque, right? You know what he's going to do a lot of the time, but you can't really stop it. And he cuts in. But I think what he does do beautifully is he kind of shapes to put it out, curl it out to the far post, and then just with his ankle whips back and slaps it in the near post, and Jose Sarr can't do anything about it. 2-0. I feel like it was a pretty good performance, but like United, it was kind of, there were moments where Wolves had more of the ball and kind of, pressured you guys a little bit, but you did well, and I feel like 2-0 was a fair result. I don't know who you want to call out particular for standout performances, but there were probably 2 or 3 people that probably deserve some praise. Who do you want to call out, Johns? You're on mute, mate.
Yeah, the main one I really just want to call out is Saka. I think he was... both of the goals that we scored, he was instrumental in creating, right? I think for the first one, that cross was unbelievable. It's a really weird, unconventional cross, because typically, if you're on the right-hand side, you don't cross you don't left foot cross curling inwards to the front post. Yeah, you don't so it was a weird one to try and deal with, and I think it was just... I don't know if he did it on purpose or what, but it seemed like Havertz was obviously running perfectly into the play, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there. And I think, Havertz was obviously able to get in front of the goalkeeper and get his head to it first. So I think it was a really weird but great cross, and I think it was not really anything that Wolves could do about it. It seemed something very, very unconventional. And I think, Saka was instrumental in creating that. And then I think the second goal, I agree with you a little bit on the Aït-Nouri thing, but I will say this, is that Saka kind of did a step, so he cuts in, stops, kind of looks like he's going to pull it back out wide, and then cuts in again. He does he does a double whammy that kind of leaves Aït-Nouri not really knowing where he's going to go. And I think he did it quickly enough that he's able to get a shot away without Aït-Nouri really trying to close him down. Because really, if you've got somebody trying to close down your shot or block your shot, you don't really have an option to go near post, because obviously that's closer to where their foot's going to be. So you kind of almost always have to whip it to the far post. But because he did it quickly enough and his footwork was quick enough to kind of catch Aït-Nouri off guard, he was able to get it front post. And it's something I think Saka's really got better at in terms of finishing. And it's part of the reason why a lot of his finishes kind of look unassuming and you almost look at them and think, oh, what the hell is the goalkeeper doing there? Because it's not in the corner. And yet he still manages to beat the goalkeeper with it, beat defenders with it too. And I think it's one of the things that he's done on his right foot also, is a lot of the time where he just laces it near post, right? A lot of people think, the conventional wisdom is to go across goal, right? If you're going from the right-hand side, cross goal, even if you're on your left foot, your right foot, regardless, down low is probably a better chance of you getting a goal. But he's managed to just kind of catch goalkeepers really off guard with the timing of his shots and the placement of them. So I think he obviously does do in the England match, right, where he gets the equaliser. He can do the kind of cross goal, far post shots as well, and they obviously do work. He places them really well, but he's able to just mix it up enough that goalkeepers can't really guess where he's going to go. And I think that's a big part of the reason why a lot of his goals look unassuming, but are actually able to get past and really difficult to defend or for a goalkeeper to try and save. So I've got to give him massive credit for that. I think Havertz again was good. Raya was good, apart from that, the pass that I didn't like to Saliba. I agree with you that Saliba definitely needs to do better. He just hammers it out or do something else, pass it back to Raya, whatever you've got to do. But I think the pass from Raya, it's just not necessary, right? I think the amount of people that were around Saliba at the time and the lack of options he had is you're almost, the ball's going to have to come back to you or he's going to lose it, because there's unless he's going to do the best pass of his life or, pull out a really, really unstoppable pass, he chips it over somebody or something, generally speaking, he's probably going to make a mistake in that area. And so I just think the risk of passing it to him at that point was too high. But I agree with you that Saliba and Gabriel did not have their sharpest game. But yeah, I think Raya outside of that pass was really good. I think the header that he saved, can't remember who it was off, but the header that he saved was really good. Kind of lucky no one was coming in though. I think if Cunha or more of a poacher type finisher was there for Wolves, I think that could have been something where you maybe see a goal conceded for Arsenal. But overall, kind of can't complain about what didn't happen. So I think Raya played pretty well too. Outside of that, I can't really give anybody crazy amounts of credit. It was good to see Martinelli back. He had one good chance that he really either should have squared to Rice or just smashed top corner, which he ends up putting over the bar. I think Rice was also decent as well. Hoping that injury that he came off with is not too bad and he gets to come back for the Villa game and he's not out for too long. But yeah, overall, I can't really name anybody else that I really want to give a massive amount of credit to. I don't think Odegaard was crazy good. I don't think Ben White, Zinchenko, I don't think anybody had the best game. I know Partey made a couple of mistakes as well. Really just doing that kind of sleeping on the ball type of thing, which I didn't like. But overall, I think it was a comfortable win. Could have been a lot more uncomfortable had a couple of things gone against us, but happy with the performance overall. And yeah, pretty glad it was against Wolves and not somebody a little bit better, because we weren't at our sharpest.
Yeah, I feel like it was the perfect first game. Wolves are a decent team as well. They've obviously lost a couple of big players, Kilman and Neto, to name a few. So it was interesting to see how they play. But Gary O'Neill does a good job, because really they looked similar to how they did last season with those players. So he's a really good coach, man. We're firmly on the Gary O'Neill train over here at the social media derby. So you're not going to hear too much slander on him. But I feel like they did all right. And I feel like you guys just did what you had to. And you've got game winners. You haven't got as many match winners as City, and that's probably got to be your biggest worry. And you've got to hope that your team as a whole chips in. But Saka, you can rely on. You always basically have been able to rely on as soon as he came in the team. Odegaard will step up. I don't think it was his greatest performance, but I feel like he was tidy. He was all right. And I feel like he's one of those players. He needs to wind up. He needs a bit of time and some minutes in his legs before he starts to really purr. So I feel like he was all right. And Havertz, honestly, I know Havertz didn't have the best game, but he just gets those important, assists, goals without playing amazing, and that's something that actually you do want from your striker. So I feel like it was really positive, and you can't really take too many negatives out of it. I thought Jesus, when he came on, looked really good as well. I know there's gonna be all the banter about him being played with by the Colombian defender and all that kind
by
of
the
weirdness.
way, how that guy did not get sent off, Mosquera, your mate, you are running a real tricky game there, mate, because you should have been sent off for what you did to, I think it was Gabriel, you did that first one too, and then he also was choking Havertz on the ground. And he managed somehow to avoid a yellow card on both of those occasions. And then the Gabriel Jesus one, Gabby Jesus gets a yellow card. How that guy has got away with that, I don't know. And I think that is the biggest indictment I can give again about the refereeing, right? Like, from the games I watched, there weren't too many like disgustingly bad decisions. I think that there was the one yesterday, what's his name, handballing for City as well, was also a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
But that stank. And how Mosquera stayed on the pitch, I will never know. And I hope that somebody has a word with him, because if he does that again to us, I'm going to find him a double foot in myself, because that is, man, sexually assaulting our bloody, our can't finish his dinner striker. We're not having that, man. He's got enough on his plate already. Just get your fingers out of that.
Honestly, man. Oh, I think I missed that in the game live. So when all the when all the memes started floating about and the group chat started going off, that was absolutely hilarious. But at the same time, we don't condone that behaviour, and I don't know what Mosquera was doing. He got away with so many like sneaky little things. Yeah, bloody hell. Not the referee's best game, I will say. But yeah, no, I thought Jesus looked lively as well. So yeah, plenty of positives, man, I think, to take out the game and you move. You've got a really difficult game week too. So it's good to get the points on the board with this one and get a should win turn into an actual win. Let's get on to another topic, which has gone a bit viral. It tends to always go viral. I don't know if it's because you guys are playing Villa next week, but we can thank AFTV for this particular one, because you've got Don Robbie interviewing Yardman, who's one of their regulars. And actually, it goes off. At some point, I think they might start swinging on each other. They're so angry. But the topic goes, and it starts, I think, for Don Robbie's talking about Arteta after Pep is the best manager in the league. Yardman loses his absolute marbles and says, no way, he's won nothing. And then Robbie obviously gets quite defensive, and he's very pro Arteta and quite pro the club since the old Troops and DT and all those days when they used to slander Wenger and all that kind of stuff. They flipped on its head a bit, and he's very much an understanding fan, which I think is good. But he argues, nope, Arteta is the second best, and Yardman comes back and says, no, Emery's the second best. And then this topic explodes on the timeline, on social media. A lot of people taking very different stances on it. I wanted to get your opinion. First of all, have you seen the clip, and like what do you make of this debate? And do you think do you agree with Robbie? Do you think Arteta's a better manager, or do you think Emery's the better manager?
I haven't seen the clip itself, but I've heard people talking about it. It's not just today and these last couple of days that people have been talking about it. Rival fans have been using this against us for quite some time now. They all say, you should have done better with Unai, and he is a much better manager than Arteta. He's done more. He's won back to back Europa Leagues, etc., etc. So it's not the first time I've heard it. In terms of the argument, I don't really know how to answer it, because I think it's first of all kind of a stupid argument. It's difficult really to say when you say who's the best manager in the league, because every manager is managing a different caliber of team. So it really comes down to expectation-wise, what do you expect from that team? And are they performing above or below it? And then you just can put credit to the manager on whether you think it's because of him that they're performing above their expectations or below their expectations. I think for Arsenal, yes, the expectation now is that we need to go and win the league. But when he first came second and we were kind of really pushing City that first season, the season before last, our expectations were not at that level. Right, our expectations were somewhere below that, and we kind of overperformed, and people were really happy with what we did, and everyone kind of put the plaudits on Arteta to say, it's kind of because of him that we've been able to get to that position. Now, for these last two seasons, because of that result, we've had our expectations much higher, and he hasn't been able to exceed his expectations. Right, he's just been able to, in my opinion, stay in line with them. Right, satisfy the expectations. Because as much as everybody says they think Arsenal are going to win the league, I don't think anybody truly expects Arsenal to win the league, if that makes sense, right? I don't think bookies do. I don't think fans do. I don't even think the most deluded of Arsenal fans really expect us to win the league, right? They think we could, we can, we might, but we don't think we have to. Like we expect it to. A lot of rival fans are putting the jokes on us. You see Matisse, etc. You must. I get that, but then if you want to do that, all 6 of the top 6 teams, traditional top 6, etc., must as well, because you've all spent similar amounts of money for the most part. Why shouldn't you have the same expectations levied on you? So I think from that point of view, Arteta is not like a standout anymore because of the expectations that he's kind of set for himself with his overperformance a couple of seasons ago. Unai, however, more recently has over-exceeded, or let's just say exceeded the expectations set for Villa. So I think it's fresher in everyone's minds that Unai is a world-class manager or a really good manager because he's exceeded expectations for a team like Villa, who typically aren't expected to get into the Champions League spots. So from my point of view, I think it's just a stupid argument because you could look back at any point in time and you probably say, oh, you know, in 2022 or 2023, Arteta was the better manager because he overperformed. Now, when you look at it because of what Unai did last season, Unai's a better manager. So I don't really know how you can, you know, emphatically say one or the other is a better manager. I think if you want to say who is the more successful manager for the, you know, from the previous however many years of their career, I think you have to say Unai because he's won with Sevilla. He won back-to-back Europa Leagues. He's won Ligue 1 with PSG. I think he also won like their like version of the FA or the League Cup as well. You know, he's won stuff, right? He's won stuff also more recently. I think, what was it, the 2021 Europa League also he won as well. So he's a proven winner. I'm not going to say of the best competitions in the world, but he's definitely won a lot more than Arteta over the course of his career. So from that point of view, yes, Unai Emery is the more successful manager. But I think people are just translating more successful to mean better. Because let's be honest, Jose Mourinho is a much more successful manager than, I don't know, whoever you want to put in that kind of category. Let's say Klopp, right? You'd probably say Jose Mourinho is a more successful manager than Klopp. If you had to choose one of the two at the time, right now, to pick for your team who's a better manager, you're obviously going to go for Klopp. So it's a different argument, and people are just mixing up success previously with how good they are now. And I also think even then they're trying to use like apples to orange comparisons to say who's better. So I'm not going to go in one camp or the other. I'm going to sit on the fence happily and say I think they're both really good managers. I think for either team, I think if you flip them around, I don't think they either could do the other's job. I don't think Unai could do what Arteta's doing at Arsenal right now. And I certainly don't think Arteta could make Aston Villa a top 4 team, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. So I just think it's a hard conversation to have. I think both of the managers should have a lot of respect. Like they should be given a lot of respect. But I know rival fans obviously want to do the whole comparison thing because they want to try and make out that Arteta is not as good as everybody says he is, or at least as good as Arsenal fans think he is.
Yeah, I mean, rival fans have been doing this for ages. I think this particular clip, obviously coming from Arsenal fans after a 2-0 win, is what's, I think, made it resurface to this level, because it's a bit weird, isn't it? After a 2-0 win, having this conversation. I know there's always arguments within you know your own fan base and stuff like that. It's not isolated to Arsenal. We have it all the time. United, you have it in other fan bases. So it's not something to poke fun at Arsenal for in isolation. It's an interesting debate though, and it's funny to see where people have gone with it though, because I agree with you pretty much wholeheartedly with everything you've just said. I think who's been a better Arsenal manager? No doubt Arteta, because Emery just wasn't a fit and he didn't perform that well for Arsenal. And I remember Arsenal under Emery, it wasn't good, man. I know you got to a Europa final, but there were a lot of games where it was worse.
Losing to Watford and doing all kinds of ridiculousness, man. We were shocking at that point. Yeah.
It was worse than what we went through last season with Ten Hag in terms of performances. I remember 30 plus shots like happening regularly, right? Regular, like to the same level as what Ten Hag was, but there were no trophies, right? So Emery's time at Arsenal was not good. We can't look back at that and go now because he's doing really well at Villa and rewrite history and act like it was actually pretty good for Arsenal. It wasn't. But at the same time, he wasn't back to the same level. I know he got Pepe, but apart from that, he had some serious bums in that team. We all agree, right? That period of Arsenal was coming off the back of Wenger's last few years. It was bum central. You had a lot of crap in that team. So he was kind of hamstrung. And Arteta's been properly backed. Now, you have to give Arteta credit for that, though. I will say, you can't criticise Arteta for that. Clearly, Arteta is a much better manager above than Emery was, right? Because he's managed to convince whoever's above him that he deserves all of that when you were going through the stinky times with Arteta, 8th and all the jokes about that, right? You had trouble with him, but you got through it, and he got through it because he was obviously delivering some messages above of like assuredness of the fact that I am the right guy and that I'm doing the right things. That Emery clearly wasn't doing that because he didn't get back the same way. And as soon as things got real sticky, he got shifted, right? So you have to give Arteta plus points for that. But I don't think that's the argument in this case. Who's the better manager overall? It's a bit of an unfair debate, but if you're going to have it, it has to be Emery because he's won more, right? But I will say Arteta is a big club manager. There's a difference. He's proven that now in the last couple of years. He can handle being at the big club with expectation on him. Emery is not that. Emery needs to be at the tier below, and then he can overachieve. He regularly overachieves. That is his mandate. He makes overachieving and miracles look normal. That's what he can do, which is obviously a talent. And he's won loads of trophies, but he can't do it at the big club. So it's unfair comparison when you compare it that way. But it's also an unfair comparison if you go, Emery's got so many more years than Arteta. Obviously, if he's a good manager, he's probably done more than Arteta will in a short space of time. But I will agree, it's not blank. You can't. I think both Robbie and Yardman are probably being unfair on this. Robbie's saying outright, you're crazy, but if you don't say Arteta just based on 2 second place finishes, not all clubs are equal. You can't say a second place for Arsenal is much better than a 4th for Aston Villa. For Villa, that is like winning the title coming from where they've come from, right? So you can't just say directly that that's completely, wiped out. But the same token, like you said, Arteta, when he finished second that first year, that was like winning the title because you weren't expecting that. You finished 5th before and 8th and 8th. We were shocked, all of us, right? Even Arsenal fans were shocked you made that huge jump. So you got to put respect on both their names, and I feel like it's unnecessary debate right now. It's perfect timing for the Villa-Arsenal game coming up this week because it's going to bleed right into that. But yeah, Arsenal are not in the moment to do it. You're on mute again, mate.
Well, I'll just ask you, Ant, if you, as a Man United fan right now, if you lose Ten Hag at the end of the season and you've got both Arteta and Emery available, who would you take?
Me personally, I'm going to go for Arteta because the proof is in the pudding that he can handle a bigger club. Emery, in the back of my mind, I'm always going to be worried. He failed at PSG. He failed at Arsenal. Can he handle the madness that is Man United?
And he's going to explode at some
point.
point. Right, he's going to explode at some point because that's one thing you even saw kind of last season. He started to get very aggy with certain people. I think at Arsenal he also got very aggy with certain people, and it kind of goes to the whole managing above. I think it's just generally the temperament that is required. But this is my point is not to say that Arteta is a better manager, but it's exactly your point of depends who you are. If you're a Man United fan, if you're a top 5, let's say top 4 team outside of Aston Villa, you're probably going to say, I want Arteta because I know that project management to get really successful and be kind of the City of this generation is going to require a manager who has that kind of ability to plan out for the next 5-6 years and beyond, and also the ability to continue to convince ownership, management, whoever else, the media, that he is the right person to be in that seat. So I think everybody in those, or most of those fans would probably say Arteta just because of what he's been able to do with Arsenal, right? But I think every other fan, or at least the mid-table teams, the Villa type teams previously before Unai was there, would probably all say Unai because Unai's probably going to win you a trophy quicker, right? And as you say, he's probably going to overachieve in order to be able to do it, but he's going to win you some sort of trophy quickly, right? Or relatively quickly. And he's probably going to get you closer to that top 4. But if you are now Villa, or if you are Newcastle, if you are somebody that is aspiring now to be the best team in the league, you're probably not going to go for an Unai type of manager. You're probably going to go for a project type of manager who you truly believe is going to, in the next 4 years, get you to the top of the game. Not just win a couple of trophies here and there that aren't necessarily the best trophies to win, but are trophies nonetheless. I think it all depends on who you are. And that's just my whole argument with this, is that it's really difficult to just say one versus the other because they're not really close enough for you to be able to say that. I think if you looked at, let's say Maresca in 4 or 5 years and you compare him to Arteta now, you probably could do that comparison a bit easier, right? Or if you look at somebody like that, a Vincent Kompany, you could probably go in and compare him with Arteta and again in the next 3-4 years and say, oh, that's a fairer comparison based off of the trajectory of their careers. But with an Unai and an Arteta, it's a really difficult conversation to have. I feel like an argument that you could have with Unai is like Unai or Mourinho, who's a better manager. Like those makes more sense in terms of the profile of clubs they've managed, the amount of time that they've done it, the trophies that they've won, etc. But for Arteta versus him, it's just a weird comparison. It's like saying who's a better manager between Kieran McKenna and Ten Hag. Like there's not really any way to judge that because one of them's been around for a year and never managed a club of the caliber of Man United. And the other one's been around for a lot longer and has managed now some pretty good teams. So it's just a weird comparison to have. And I think there's never really going to be any conclusive evidence of one being favoured over the other. So I think you just argue until the cows come home. And Robbie's on the yard man and whatever else.
Possibly, or the other way around. But I just feel like, I mean, both sides, it gets a bit jarring, right? Because you've got really staunch defenders on both sides. Like I do feel like the way you guys back Arteta is beautiful in a sense because I prefer you guys to back your manager than to do what happened to Wenger, right? That's not nice. No one wants to see that. But at the same time, Arteta's got to prove something. He's got to win it. Like he's done everything right up until now, right? Even the 8th and 8th, you can't keep hammering them about that because everyone's learning that can happen when your team's in the mud. But the next steps he's taken have all been good, right? But now this fourth challenging season, like I know it's extremely difficult, but if he wants to be in that echelon of manager that I think some Arsenal fans are already putting him in, he's got to come away with something. And I mean like the big dog trophies. Because if he comes away with the FA Cup or League Cup, you're doing essentially what Emery's doing, right? Emery could do that, or Ten Hag could do that. But if you want to put them up in that echelon, they've got to go and do what Klopp did, even if it was once. You've got to go there. That's the level you're trying to get to. And if you can't, then I feel like then, Arsenal fans are going to take it on the chin because you're not going to be able to like stand behind some of the over-the-top claims of him being up there. Well, because what Robbie says, it's a little bit over the top, right? Because there are a lot of class managers in the league. Everyone starts from different points. But in terms of your team, you've been the second best team, definitely in the league. You know, the manager stuff, the players,
doesn't mean
that's
the
hard
manager.
to debate.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree with that.
And with Emery, I think Emery doesn't have anything to prove anymore. But what he is what he is. He can't go to those top teams. I'm sorry. I think
he's proven as the second echelon of manager.
He is what he is.
He can't. He hasn't proven, and I don't think he will ever prove that he's the top echelon of manager.
He's not. He's not. And I'm sorry. I know some fans, because they see his overachievements, will try and get him in the conversation again. He's had his chance. I know PSG is a batshit crazy club, but Arsenal weren't a batshit crazy club at the time, and he effed it. So unfortunately, that's the game, and I'm sure he'll be very happy at this level. And there's no disrespect to Villa because they're a big, big club, but they haven't been in the big six and been at this top table for a long, long time. And the Sevillas and Villarreals and stuff that he's managed before are the same. But, there's no shame in that. Those are great clubs and he can achieve and he can bring silverware. And if I was fans of those clubs, I'd be really happy with that. So, it's an interesting debate. Let's see. Obviously, there's going to be more banter off the back of it, either for Arteta or for Emery off the back of the result. I guess let's hope it's not a draw because then I think it just keeps going on. But let's wrap up the Arsenal segment there then. Both of us, 3 points on the board. I think we're both happy. All right, let's get into the transfers then. I think this will be a pretty quick segment, John, so it'll be funny to see how we get this clipped up for YouTube. But Man United rumoured ins. We're still being heavily linked with Ugarte. It's come back on. I know in the last few episodes we've talked about it and it seems like it's been off, but it seems like it's back on now. He's been left out of the PSG squad. It looks like we're still negotiating. Apparently, George Mendes is, in the UK regularly, obviously for the João Felix deal to Chelsea, but also Ugarte to United. It seems like we're still going big on him as our midfield signing. There's still chat around Sander Berge from Burnley as well. Some rumours actually that we could get two midfielders and it could be Ugarte and either Berge or Amrabat. If I'm going to choose my 2 pennies on this, I'm happy with Ugarte. I don't really want Berge. If we're going to get a second, but I'm not anti it. Like, I'll give him a chance. I'm not going to slander him like a lot of big content Man United big content creators are at the moment. I wouldn't be cursing if we got him. I feel like he'd obviously be useful. He's got height. He's good on the ball. But, there's worries getting a relegated player. We've all gone through that.
Yeah.
It either goes very well or it stinks. So let's see. I'd probably be happier with getting Ugarte and Amrabat just because off the back end of last season, Amrabat looked handy. And he's played with us. He knows how we play. It would be an easier transition. So I'd probably go for Ugarte and Amrabat if I had a choice. But at this point, we just need midfielders in, right? Because you saw in that game when Casemiro and Mainu gassed out, we had to turn to McTominay again, who looks like he's on his way out. Eriksen is on the bench. Collier, who I feel like they're decent options, but I feel like Ten Hag wasn't making changes because he doesn't trust those guys to come in and do what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So get Ugarte in, get Berge or Amrabat in, and I feel like our business should be done for the window. Right, I'm happy with the rest of our team. I think after that, rumoured outs, Pellistri looks like he's on his way to Panathinaikos. I know it's not a big player for us, but I think that's some more money into the transfer kitty. It's a permanent deal. I feel like it's good for him. He's not going to get game time. He's a decent player, and I'm questioning whether why he wants to go to Panathinaikos, but maybe it's the only team in for him. I don't know, but I expected him to go back to Spain or Italy or something like that. So it's interesting for him to be linked to Panathinaikos, and then McTominay. So apparently Fulham have reopened talks with us about McTominay. And then also these weird links to Napoli. Antonio Conte is such a weird don, isn't he? Like he wants McTominay and Lukaku, two players that I think most Chelsea and United fans want out of their club desperately, and he wants them both. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where McTominay goes. Apparently, he wants to go to Napoli, but the issue we've got is I think they need to sell Osimhen before they've got any money to make the deal.
Come to Arsenal, son. Come on.
Yeah, let's see if that can get done. I don't know if you want to add any on those, but we're kind of in a holding pattern with United.
Yeah.
There's not too many new things to talk about.
No, I mean, it's not too interesting. I think, Ugarte, I think it was very clear during the match with Fulham that the reason that they did have shots, even if they weren't great shots, were because Casemiro, man, he doesn't run back. Like, he just doesn't seem like he's got energy at all. He's got anything left in his legs.
People were saying, no, he was good, though.
I don't think he was good at all.
People were saying he had a good performance.
So I don't think he was that good because I think on the ball he was better. So he didn't misplace as many passes. But on the 2-on-1 situations, where like Martinez maybe makes a mistake or whatever else, and he comes out a little bit and doesn't win the ball, you hope that your defensive midfielder is going to fill that gap, right? You hope like a Rodri or a Rice is going to get his ass back and fill the gaps where you think the defender might have made a mistake, and I think that is the job of defensive midfielder. But Casemiro doesn't do that at all, man. Like he jogs back. It's a 2-on-1. You're 1-0 up, and it's like nearly the end of the match, your first match of the season, and he's not even like busting along to get back there. And I just think he's got half of a lung left. Like he's barely even there. So I think if you get like a proper Ugarte or somebody in that's going to like peg it back and forth and it's going to be all over the place and it's not really going to roam too high up, I think you'll see a massive change and improvement in your like the shots faced, and you might lose something on the ball because Casemiro is a pretty good like ball playing defensive midfielder. But I think you'll gain so much on the defensive end. So I think you really need to be prioritising getting Ugarte in. And even an Amrabat, I think even Amrabat's got more left in him than Casemiro. So you just have to get one of those two. Sander Berge, I don't really know how good he is. Didn't really want to watch Burnley all that much unless Arsenal were pumping them. So I don't know how good he is, but I would just say you're Man United. You're not really the team that's supposed to be buying people from Burnley. And yeah, I think Ugarte is probably the safer option in that regard. So, yeah, outside of that, not really anything else to say.
Yeah, no, I agree. Get Ugarte and get me Amrabat, because Amrabat proved he could also get about the pitch as well. And we've got creativity, right? We've got Bruno, we've got Mount, we've got, depending on whether we keep Eriksen, you've got him from deep, you've got Kobe who can play, line-breaking passes and stuff like that and drive with the ball. You need the legs now. You need to get Ugarte, you need to get Amrabat. And if we keep Casemiro, that's fine. But you need to have those other guys when he gasses out, because he did gas out. And he will gas out in the future. But let's go on to the Arsenal transfers then. Your favourite player still being linked in, Mikel Merino. It looks like that's going to happen now. It's dragging a bit, but it looks like it's going to happen. I see Fabrizio doing his eyes emoji and all that kind of stuff, and that means generally that it's a here we go, not round, or there we land, not far away. But yeah, we won't talk on him too much because we don't want to get dislikes.
Nah, keep the dislikes coming, mate. You're not going to change my perspective on Mikel Merino. We need a bloody striker. Mikel Merino could, unless he turns into bloody prime, I don't know who, but like prime Henry, I don't care. Give me a striker. So yeah, keep on giving them dislikes if that's what you want to do. But Mikel Merino, in my opinion, ain't changing, mate.
Yeah, fair. Jonty's on his own with this because I've seen all the other Arsenal content creators are either they're neutral or they're positive about Marino. Johnson's the only one being like, I don't want.
Because they're all looking at it like one at a time. Like, that just by itself is a great, addition. And I think if I did look at it just by itself, I'd probably be neutral. I don't think it's a terrible signing. I think he'll add depth to the team, but he's not better than our first team players in those positions right now. I don't think. And we need a striker. So, like, it's all relative. If we already had a striker, I'd be fine with Mikel Merino. But if anybody wants to try and joke me into the fact that Mikel Merino is a more needed position than a striker, you're going to have to take a long time to do that because I'm not coming around to that idea. We need a bloody striker.
So, yeah, in case you didn't get Johnson's subtle hints there, I think he thinks Arsenal needs a striker. So, I mean, there's not too many links, though. It's weird, though, because I think a lot of Arsenal fans would agree with you. I think they're separate issues from most Arsenal fans, and that might be where the like confusion about why you're so anti-Marino comes from. But, like, there's I mean, Gyökeres might be one. Yeah. I saw that Sporting are looking to buy Vitor Roque from Barca. And I mean, why would they get him if they've got Gyökeres? So I'm pretty sure that means someone must be coming in for Gyökeres afterwards, which could be you guys. I don't think it'd be a bad signing. From Coventry, your uni town to Arsenal in like 2 or 3 years. That's a bit of a come up, but he could be a decent player. But there's no links. So maybe I'm just putting 2 and 2 together, which might not equal 4. So let's see how it goes. But on the rumoured outs, so Eddie Nketiah, obviously that Bournemouth link that we covered last week is pretty much dead in the water now because they've gone and signed Evan Nielsen. But he has been linked with Palace and Forest again. The only thing I will say about the Forest link, that's probably going to die too because I think they're very close to agreeing a deal for Santiago Jimenez from Feyenoord. So bloody hell, yeah. Clearly, there's a lot of teams out there for a striker, but for some reason, Eddie's not being, it's not getting across the line with any of these clubs. So it's interesting. It must be to do with either his wage demands or like what you guys are asking for the transfer fee, because he'd be good at Forest. He'd have been good at Bournemouth. You would have thought they would have gone for, that kind of player. I know they've both got foreign managers, so maybe that's why they want to go for foreign players, but you would have thought those teams would have been more interested in taking Nketiah than, someone who's unproven to the league. But it doesn't seem like it. So it must be a money issue, I've got to think. Or you guys don't want to sell him. But he's been linked with so many players, you'd think it's obvious you guys are trying to flog him. But the deals are just not being made. And then you've also got Ramsdale, who's been linked now with Ajax. I think it's a loan deal, which I know you're not super happy about. But yeah, so different clubs linked with those players. Do you have any feelings about those transfers, or are you just trying to get them done now?
I'm just trying to get them done. I just think with the Nketiah one, I just don't know if we have the juice or the stock right now to try and command such a fee for him. And I mean, I've said it before that I just don't be selling people for 5 million when Man United is selling, or Man City are selling them for 25. You know what I mean? Like, we can't be getting shafted on some pretty decent players is my main point. And I think from my point of view, if I'm like a Bournemouth or a Crystal Palace or a Nottingham Forest, I'm probably just looking overseas because you get better value for money, and you might end up with a better player for a lot less money. So to go and buy an English player from an English team is really risky, right? Unless you are certified, that they're going to be class. And I don't think Nketiah has done enough in the league to justify anybody really being that confident on him. So I just think, if I'm a manager of one of those kind of mid to low table teams, I'm going to go and get somebody overseas, unfortunately, because it's just a way better deal. And I can't spend all of my budget on a player who's not really done very much for, yes, a better team. So that's where, I don't know how Man City keep being able to do it and selling their crap players or their youngsters to, decent English teams for 30 odd million or whatever else. I don't know how Newcastle are selling Minte or whatever for that much money either. Like, I don't get how that's possible because
he looked decent.
No, he does look decent, but like you've really got to have a leap of faith if you're a smaller team to go and spend that much money on somebody who's barely ever played for an English team. So I don't see. I can understand why all these teams are saying no to Nketiah, but I don't know how these other teams are able to do it. So like we've got to either put that price down a little bit or just take what we can get and do it quickly, man. Because otherwise we're going to end up with Nketiah still at the club. And he's not terrible, so I'm not going to be super unhappy about that. But I think we both know for him it's not best because he's not going to play, and for us he's not best because he's not good enough. So it's getting to desperation stages right now, mate. This is like a nightclub at 4 a.m. Like we're starting to get into the desperation stages right now. Everyone's just looking around for a partner.
Yeah. No, I mean we are as well. I'm desperate for us to flog players, so. And even get the players. We've been linked with, both. I think both of our teams, all the players we've discussed before, has just been dragging on. Yeah. But I feel like where we are right now, we're primed for all of this to happen on deadline day, aren't we? Now?
Pretty much.
I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like that's where we're heading for all of this stuff. So it's very frustrating to be linked with players for this long, and it's going to go to Jim White. Sky Sports News, transfer deadline day. That's what we're heading for, that settings. Yeah. All right, let's wrap up the transfer segment then. Let's go into the game week 2 previews. As we talked about earlier, United travelling down to Brighton, to the Amex to take on Herzl, or whatever his name is, that young coach that they've got. Who
man's got Phil Foden's haircut.
Brighton, top of the...
My guy.
Yeah, his haircuts are crazy. When I saw his first interview, I was like, wow, what is going on with this Barnet? But yeah, he's got them top of the table, so big them up. Playing really nice football, battered Everton. Like I said, Minte looked really good. Matoma came back to life, scored a decent goal. Danny Welbeck as well, decent goal. Adingra, they've got players, man. So yeah, it won't be easy. And then you've got Aston Villa versus Arsenal. Which I think Brighton United is the early kickoff on Saturday. Villa Arsenal's a late kickoff on Saturday. And yeah, it's the Unai Emery Good Evening Derby. Villa also getting a win away at West Ham. John Duran with a decent goal to get the win for them. Amadou Onana, my prediction for signing of the season, scored a really good header as well. So it's going to be a tough game. Let's start with the Brighton Man United game then, John. So I'll kick off with the predictions on this bit. I think we're going to win, but I would not be shocked if we lost. I'm going to go win just because I feel like our defence looks a bit tighter. Everton looked so leaky. So as well as Brighton played, I think Everton were absolutely to be perfectly honest. And no surprise there because we basically said that about them all season last season. So I think it's a 50-50 as to, Brighton playing well and Everton playing poorly. So hopefully with a bit of a stronger defence, we can get the win, but I think it's going to be a really tight game, and Brighton look like they play decent football. The only thing I will also say is they've got a lot of young players, so I don't believe their young players are going to be able to play so consistently. I know they've got the Welbecks and the Dunks, but if you look at the rest of their team, it's a really young first team and a young squad. So I think we're going to get the win, and I think we'll win the game 2-1. But I think it'll be really tight, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if we lost because first away game going to the Amex is not easy. So I think a lot of people have downplayed what Brighton are going to be because of this new coach. They've got enough good players that I think they'll be comfortably in mid-table, and they'll get some big scalps. I'm just hoping it's not going to be us. So yeah, I'm going to go Brighton 1, Man United 2. What's your prediction on that game?
I'm going to go for Brighton win, and I think it will be 2-1 the other way. And the only reason I say that is because I agree with you on the young players thing, but I think we also have to remember new manager bounce, man. And that in combination with the fact that young players can be fearless, playing up against a Man United that's somewhat susceptible to losing, makes for a really good game, and it makes for a lot of bravery from the young players. And I think Man United were good in the first game, but they probably weren't convincing enough for me to think they're going to go and be able to beat Brighton. And I agree with you. I think Brighton aren't going to be quite as good or quite as bad as everybody thinks now. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were before necessarily, but I also don't think they're going to be horrible because I think Herzl doesn't look like he's a terrible manager. I think he's going to be still doing a lot of similar things that the previous managers were doing. And I think they still got a really good squad. Not full of a lot of names. It's not some crazy squad like Chelsea or someone else like that, but it's a pretty good team, and you reeled off a lot of names that are good players. So I'm just going to go for 2-1 to Brighton. I think it could also be a United win too. I think it's a harder game to call, but I'm just going to go for Brighton because I would like to get ahead of you in the prediction table even further.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you are ahead of me still, right? We have to cover that after this.
Yeah.
Of these predictions, obviously, we'll give a recap of what we think the scores will be. But yeah, all right. I'm not mad at that. I think Brighton are a good team, but I really think this is a very difficult game to call. Like, I don't think you could get too much from both of our first games. But yeah, it'll be at least I think it'll be a good game to watch.
Yeah.
I think it'll be probably more open and more chances created than our game against Fulham. Anyway, let's put it that way. All right, so I'm going 2-1 Brighton, 2-1 Man United. You're going 2-1 Brighton. All right, let's go into Aston Villa Arsenal. Ooh, talk about difficult first away days. This one stinks. The Premier League supercomputer has not been kind to you. Villa look decent, man, and I feel like West Ham are going to be a decent team, and I feel like they deserve to win that game. So yeah, I think it's going to be really tricky. But let's get into your prediction first on this one then. So how do you think the game's going to go, and who do you think is going to win?
I'm going 3-1 Arsenal, and I think it's going to be a hard game. And I think the 3-1 that I'm predicting is not going to reflect the actual game itself. I think it's going to be a lot closer than that. But I think we're going to get a couple of early goals. We'll start relatively quick, catch them off guard. They'll kind of climb back into the game, maybe get an equaliser just around half-time or just after half-time, and then we'll get like a late jammy goal against play, and that will kind of end the game. But I think I'm going to go 3-1 Arsenal, and I think it'll be a tight game, though, and that will be a flattering result for us.
Yeah, I don't know where you're seeing that. I mean, I know Arsenal are good away, and I know these games have had some crazy results. I know they beat you there last season, but the season before, I think, what was it, 5-3 or 4-3 or something? You guys won with a late Jorginho. Well, I know it was counted as an own goal, but it bounced back off a Jorginho thunderbolt. So they can be high scoring ones, but I don't know. I think this game, I don't know if I can see you guys winning it. I can see a draw, and I can see a tight Villa win, but I don't know what to go for.
Come on, mate.
I think I'm going to go for a draw. So I think I'm going to go for a Desmond. I think it's going to be 2-2. I think there'll be lots of chances. Villa will go for it. I think you guys will go for it. I think away you guys tend to be a bit more open and get some good results away. But I think Ollie Watkins is a bit of a kryptonite for some of our top defenders. He's a kryptonite for Van Dijk. He was difficult for you guys to defend last season. He's been difficult for us to defend at United as well. I feel like this will be the game where he comes back into it properly, because he was quite quiet against West Ham, wasn't he? I don't think he had his greatest game.
Early as well.
Yeah, he came off quite early. So if he plays, I think he's going to cause you guys some problems. But you know what? Villa, I don't think they'll be as good as last season, but I feel like still they're going to be a team, that are going to be able to get a scalp and a big victory at home against the big teams. And I feel like there's just so many subplots and storylines with Aston Villa Arsenal. I feel like it's never a straightforward game. So I'm going to go for 2-2. But yeah, I would hope you guys get the win, because I feel like it will, shut certain people up who are being unnecessarily negative about certain things about Arsenal. But I feel like Emery's got somewhat of a hoodoo on you guys. At least last season he did. So I'm going to go for 2-2. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this coming week of fixtures for both of us. I think we've both got really interesting games. I think they'll be much more open, much more interesting than, all respect to Fulham and Wolves, but they're not two teams that play the most beautiful football and play the most expansive football. Whereas Brighton and Villa, on the other hand, they go for it. So I think it's going to be a fun week of Premier League football. Now let's do a quick update on the prediction table between the two of us. So last week I went for Man U 3-1 Fulham. You went for 2-0, right? I went for Arsenal 3-0 Wolves. You went for Arsenal 2-0 Wolves. Is that right? I believe that's what you went. You went for 2-2-0s. Yeah, I'm already regretting doing this season. So I've got I've got 1 point for Fulham and 1 point for Arsenal. So that puts me on 3 points now. You've got 1 point for Fulham and 3 points for Wolves. So that puts you on 6. So you're slapping me up 6-2 at the moment. So this is fun.
Come on.
Let's hope I can pull it back with these results. I mean, we've gone pretty different results this time, so it's going to be a bit of a different table next week when we check the scores, because obviously last week we both went for wins for both of our teams, different score lines, and this time I think all 4 of our results are different. So yeah, it's going to be fun to dig into the pod next week, because I'm hoping I've pulled it back. But looking at how my FPL went this week, I've started off at the top of the table and somehow managed to drift down to mid-table. So it's not looking good for me. But anyway, yeah, we'll wrap up the pod here, Johns. Good episode as usual. Hopefully both of our teams can get wins in these 2 big games, and we can go into some pretty crunch games after that with 6 points on the board. But yeah, cheers for joining, Johns. Thanks for everyone for joining. See you guys next week.
Cheers, Ant. Cheers, everyone.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.